It's just going.
The following program is rated TV MAL. It contains strong language and is intended only for mature audiences. All right. Howdy, everybody. Am I unmuted? Hey, I'm okay. Hi, everyone. It's Channel Dad, your guest host or substitute host. I guess you could say I'm really a guest. Substitute host. And Seth can be with us tonight, but we'll see if we can't pull off a decent show, even though I've got a zillion other things I got going on. But anyway, so hope everyone had at least a decent Christmas, if not a great Christmas, depending on where you are. I guess I should look at the camera since that's what everyone expects. And I had a nice Christmas since I was here by myself, just me and the animals, and all the peace and quiet. So that was nice. Although everyone in Cincinnati missed me. So anyway, the man to my, I guess this my right? Yes, the man to my right, Mr. Applegate. Say howdy.
Good night, friends and fans. Welcome to another War Room. And I hope everybody also had a Merry Christmas. And don't forget, 'tis the season to be jolly. So do try to cheer up.
Yeah, I don't know. How does it? I was trying to make you. No, that's not what I wanted.
Oh, you made yourself.
Nah, I don't want to be in charge. Anyway, I was trying to make it so when you were talking, it was just you were full screen.
Yeah, but I couldn't. You pressed 1 instead of 2, I think.
I don't know. Oh, this is the button. All right, and that man chuckling all the way from the other side of the country, Mr. Anime.
Hey guys, hope you are doing good. I'm a bit under the weather right now, but I'm able to come on and everything.
Happy 500.
I figured it out. All right. Hopefully people start watching.
Anime Night made 500 subs on YouTube.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Very nice, yes. I'm nowhere near that on YouTube, but I'm over 600 on BitChute for some reason.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't buy a bucket on BitChute. I've even stopped posting because it's not worth it.
A lot of people are. I liked Rumble, but a lot of people seem to be migrating off Rumble to BitChute for some reason. I don't know what it is.
And BitChute's getting as annoying as YouTube with the ads. It's ridiculous. It's like you watch 2 minutes and you watch, YouTube, I think it's like maybe 2 minutes and then you get another ad and it's like, this is worse than broadcast television.
Yeah.
So, but anyway. So, I'm running late. I've got my daughter's Christmas gift is in part what you're looking at. Through. You actually can't see it. It's over here. Nice clear case. I think I've got a picture. Hold on a second. Let's see if this works. Otherwise, I got to mail it to myself and maybe I can. But what do I do with it? There it is. Maybe.
So that's what the fans look like on the front. They're huge.
Oh, wow.
So basically what this is a case. She got me it's a Ryzen something processor in that. I'm going to see how well it compares to my Threadripper. It is Windows 11 Pro, so hopefully I can be forgiven. Although, and it's a 1 gigabyte M.2 SSD, 32 gigs of RAM, so about half what I had on my other computer, but we'll see. It might be enough. But what I had to do is take my graphics card out of my old computer, put in it. That was a chore. And then I bought a second 2 gigabyte M.2, which I may put Linux on, or I might put DAZ Studio. I haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do with that yet. But anyway, I got some other stuff to install, and we'll see how much space I got left, and then I'll worry about that. But anyway, so my graphics card is a Gen 4 PCI Express. My old computer was a Gen 3, so I'm really looking forward to getting some benchmark Blender stuff, and seeing how much faster everything is. But anyway, and it's so it's only 750 watt power supply. I don't need the 1350 anymore. So it's like, it's supposed to be faster and at half the heat. So we'll see. Anyway, but that's in part why I was late. Plus, wife traveling back and the dog, everything just been a mess. And I finally, at 8:45, pulled my dinner out of the refrigerator and threw it in the microwave. And then the dogs start dancing around, saying, "Hey, we need to go out." So, and then I realized I forgot to close up the chickens. I know, it's just woe is me, right? So, anyway, and my phone keeps.
Well, I spent 2 months getting my Kickstarter ready, and it still hasn't been approved after a month, even though the website says you'll hear by November 28th. It's been a month.
November 28th. Yeah, it was a little while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I know they had a lot of crap going on where people were upset about various Kickstarters and things, so they might be having to slow down the approval process.
I'm not the only one. Everybody's upset with Kickstarter.
Yeah.
It's random where things get approved, random when they reply.
Right. Well, wasn't it Kickstarter that?
Yeah, Kickstarter seems to be having trouble keeping up with support requests. Oops, we have a late rollout.
Uh-oh.
Bucket. Yep. Yep.
No. Oh no, he crashed.
Yeah.
No, near her. His tower hates us.
I don't know. Is everybody migrating off Kickstarter to Indiegogo, or is that just my imagination that there are less Kickstarters floating around X lately?
I have no idea, but there's been a lot going on in the world, and
yeah, there's so much going on. It's hard to keep track of it all.
we are 5 days away from the new year, though. That's what's crazy.
Pac-Man put out a video, and I would say the new title of this video is "Instant Regret." He says, "Since Donald Trump's been elected, he's done nothing," and it's like, how to say no? How to say you know nothing about the transfer of power?
Ooh.
Pac-Man is exposed yet again for knowing nothing about the political process in the United States. How does this guy even have more than 1,000 followers? On the left, that stupid. I think I just answered my own question, didn't I? But But as Jimmy Dore pointed out, you know, the left keeps saying how they want a Joe. They want to invest in, quite literally invest money into, you know, YouTubers to make stars like Joe Rogan, you know, and others. Yet they forget they had Joe Rogan. He was a Bernie bro. They lost Joe Rogan. They sort of lost the Young Turks, though. As soon as that won't last, look, I don't think Chank's awakening will last long. As soon as the Trump administration is over, he'll be back to sucking Democrat balls. But I think Anna's done. I think she may actually quit. She has talked about quitting. This may be her last administration. And she thinks it's time to move on and do something else. Which is what, you know, a lot of YouTubers don't. They have to wait till their viewership hits almost zero before they go, you know what? I had a good run. Switch. But there are a lot of dead channels with huge... You know this, right? Every so often you lose subs, right? Yet there's these channels that never seem to lose subs. They just always go up and up and up and up. But then you notice something. Wait a minute. Why is their viewership like less than 10%? Why have I got videos with more viewers than these guys? Why don't I have more followers? Yeah. There's definitely some YouTube favoritism going on.
Oh, absolutely.
Guys like Pac-Man, you look at their followers and you look at their view counts and you go, man, this guy's bought followers. Looks like Leif hasn't figured out how to come back yet.
Uh-oh.
Oh, we'll just keep going until he comes back. It still says we're live.
Yeah, we're good.
Until we crash out. Which usually doesn't happen, so it should be fine. So, what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Oh, just a lot of there's just a lot of crazy stuff going on from the politics to the world of gaming. Lots of new stuff coming soon, and Disney failing miserably to buy Sega. The CEO wanted to buy Sega, and it's like, no, we're not happening. And apparently Disney is hiding comments hiding people's comments who are still dunking on Mufasa with the shot with Sonic stuff.
Sonic owned them.
And they don't want to be reminded of that. They don't want to be reminded of the holiday ass whipping that they got.
They dared to claim they opened at number one. And then said they were the number one movie. And everyone was pointing out, oh, Sonic. And then Disney says, number one in quotation marks, you know, because they weren't. Because Sonic hadn't opened in a lot of cinemas because, it was staged opening, whereas Disney was all in. But Sonic beat Disney even with less studios. So, and everybody's saying what a trash story. It's just a rehash of a rehash. It's the same story over and over again with that. Every Lion King, it's remakes, it's derivatives. They're all the same story. There's nothing new. They have no new stories to tell.
Right.
Now, I think I had this conversation with late, how that the liberal establishment, that's what they do. Whenever the liberals establish power, they take over the arts and they basically freeze the arts. Oh, late crashed again.
Man.
You know what I mean? You look at the liberal era in classical Greece. They only had 27 plays, and that's it. They repeated them over and over again. Then you get the Shakespeare
still
area.
here. I just turned my thing off and it took me out of the thing. But I'm gonna mute while you guys talk so I can finish eating. But yeah, I had to switch browsers and everything. This is crazy.
Yeah. So we have the classical Greece era. Then we have the liberal era of Shakespeare. You know, with Shakespearean plays, all they do is play this recast the same play over and over and over again. Then in the modern era, you have the West End, what I would call the West End era, you know, with Cats and a dozen other plays. They would, you know, Death of a Salesman, you know, all the plays they do over and over again, you know, for 20 years. But that's the liberal mentality, see? They freeze themselves in a slither of, you know, as soon as they get power or something becomes popular, they freeze it, right? They don't create anything new. Like, that's why we have endless reboots and remakes, because they can't think of anything new. And they also don't want outsiders to succeed, you know. And it's sad, it's sick, but we may finally see the death of Ubisoft, which brings me no joy because they used to be a brilliant company, but then they got in bed with Tencent and caved into feminism.
Yep.
Now, apparently, but a lot of people don't know this, but Ubisoft didn't create Far Cry. It was actually Crysis. Ubisoft just took a lot of Ubisoft's IP, and one of the reasons why Ubisoft is in so much trouble is because they kept acquiring smaller studios with better games. And then they poured hundreds of millions of dollars into games that should, and they knew wouldn't be profitable. See, Ubisoft was great when they were just a publisher. You know, publishing, when games were $50, Ubisoft was $30. You know what I mean? And that's what Ubisoft's claim to fame was. They were just a publisher, and they published games. They didn't publish as many games as other companies, but they always published at a lower price, and they had a consistently higher quality. But then come the late 2000s with French politics going the way it has, you know, further and further left, the DEI hires, push for women in power, and it's just gone downhill. Now, Ubisoft Star Wars isn't the only game that's failed, but they all have one thing in common. They went woke.
Yeah, they did.
The left keeps saying that MAGA hats are just the minority. Really? Look at the electoral map. We won the popular vote. We won the most counties. We won the most states.
Yeah, we did. We won that one.
And the thing is, it's because, as I kept saying, I kept saying up to the election, did I not, that if the centrists actually woke up and realized the difference between the left and the right, it's instead of thinking in broad terms of the past, just look at the difference between the left and the right today, you'll vote. I mean, sure, there's some bad Republicans like Dan Crenshaw, Dan the Cringe, like Patch McCain, who wants to sue Cat Turd because Cat Turd called him corrupt for supporting the Ukraine war and Israel over the American people. I mean, Dan, where'd your 8 million come from?
Yeah, where did that 8 million come from?
And why do you keep supporting Israel? They don't fucking need our money. They're getting enough from BlackRock. And why did we pour trillions of dollars into BlackRock? I hate how the government corruption. I mean, people are so used to it, they just can't see it. You know what I mean? But a lot of people are definitely going to be upset once Doge kicks in.
Oh, yeah. They're going to be really upset. And then we're going to be sitting here like, thank you, Doge, while we're getting some more money.
Oh, wow. Guess who just announced their candidacy for the DNC chair? Marianne Williamson. She wants to create positive energy to counter Trump. Well, I'm positive she's a lunatic. Anybody second that positivity? What else is happening? Oh, yeah, back in 2022, you may not remember this, a gay couple in Georgia were hailed as a, model for tolerance, and, they adopt, with gay adoption, with gays able to adopt. So Georgia, used these two as poster boys for gay adoption. And they were often seen with I love my family, love is love t-shirts, the rainbow colors, the usual puke. Well, in 2023, they were arrested for child molestation. And those charges were quietly upgraded to pimping out minors. They not only did they molest their adopted sons, they pimped them out to a pedophile ring. And guess how they advertised their show? And of course, the local LGBTQ magazine used to feature them all the time with contact details. Now, they haven't said who else has been arrested. But a government worker has admitted to forcing one of the sons to performing oral sex on him. So it shows you that, the activists in the government, this is why they should be rooted out. But a short time ago, when was this? Yeah, just before Christmas, the Georgia couple was sentenced to 100 years for sexual abuse. They're calling it the House of Horrors. And remember, see, the thing is, the boys were adopted from a Christian special needs agencies, And of course, we don't know about the clients or anything like that. But there was evidence open evidence, right, including Snapchat, where he was standing with. He actually shared images of child abuse on Snapchat, and of course, nobody in their Snapchat group reported it. And there was also an arrest in 2022 for after an alleged member of the ring was downloading child porn. And yeah, that's how they were caught. One of the defendants who received the light sentence blew the whistle. Basically, he was caught. The couple initially pleaded not guilty, but eventually they pleaded guilty to child molestation, aggravated sodomy, sexual exploitation of children.
See what happens when the lefty tries to do something, and it's like, oh yeah, kids are great, and it's like, here's your arrest warrant.
So, all these love is love activists, and they turn out to be pedos. What a shock! What a shock! And the thing is, they're the first to condemn Christians. Oh, you Catholic priest! Ooh, 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 ooh. You know, like, how many school teachers? How many of you activists get arrested every year? It's rare that we actually get reports on anybody being arrested, but let alone sentenced. But they're really upset. But of course, they're real because every time they have a loss, in the left, they just suddenly quietly, shuffle everything under the rug and pretend it never happened. That they never held up this couple as a model for alternative families. Yeah, alternative. Yeah, you always have to bitching about families and abuse, but straight people don't abuse kids, right?
Exactly.
Normal straight people with healthy relationships do not abuse kids. So I'm just looking at the news. This really been a quiet Christmas, hasn't it?
Oh, yes, it has.
It's been really quiet. Oh, this is a good one. Oh, you're going to love this. Homeowner guns down intruder. Guess what the sheriff said when he rocked up? He should have expected it. Florida, you should expect to get shot, says a Florida sheriff. Remember, Florida recently voted homeowner rights, remember? You're at your home, somebody tries to break in, bye-bye. Oh, guess what? The suspect is an illegal. The second suspect, another illegal, was charged with was captured. So one was the two men tried to break. One was shot. The other fled. Was captured. Turned out to be an illegal. What a shock, eh? Well, one less for Trump to deport.
It's been a fun. It's been a fun Christmas.
Fannie Willis may face prosecution for misconduct.
Ooh.
Courts are not done with her yet, but she just refused to dismiss the case against Trump, and the courts just said, right, we're going to look into you for misconduct. Georgia lawmakers are going to subpoena her for information related to the Trump case and her conspiring with Jack and her meetings with the White House. Fulton County Judge gave Willis until January 13th to file an appeal. That she's been avoiding answering questions. Committee examining misconduct allegations against her. During the persecution of Trump, she failed to turn over documents. Of course, then there was the relationship with Nathan Wade, of which she was obviously paid the huge sums of money Nathan was getting paid. Like George is turning over a new leaf, eh? Finally.
Mm-hmm. It looks like Canada is going to go with the vote of no confidence.
Well, the opposition leader is Pierre Poilievre doesn't have enough votes on his own, but it looks like Vijay Singh may actually finally agree to remove Trudeau and hold fresh elections because he has a minority government that can't get anything done. And one of the reasons why nobody likes Trudeau is he's covering up for Chinese spies who actually infiltrated government. Members of Trudeau's own party, and that's beyond the pale. Remember how they... Well, if these were Russians, if they were spying for Russia, I bet you it would be totally different. And of course, Kevin O'Leary jumped in and commented. Remember, Trump said we should invade Canada and make it the 51st state. Did he say invade or liberate? I can't remember.
I think he said liberate.
Yeah. Biden sending another $1 billion to Ukraine. Oh, Greg Gumbel died. He was a famous sportscaster back in the 90s. LeBron James claimed he got the highest NBA Christmas views of all time, but then the NFL viewership numbers came out. It turned out he was lying. It was the NFL. The numbers he was quoting was the NFL, not the NBA. The NBA is in decline. US may have an unlikely ally next year in its struggles with China in the South China Sea. Vietnam is teaming up with the Philippines to counter China's illegal land grab in the Spray Islands. So far, Vietnam has grabbed 7 islands and occupied them. They've built runways and ports. It seems to me they're also working with the Philippines to counter China's incursions into both Philippines and China's countered by claiming that they'll try and take the Halong Bay. I mean, Gulf of Tonkin. And you remember the Gulf of Tonkin?
Yep. One of the biggest frauds out there.
Well, it's a no man's land. It's between China and Vietnam. Lots of little islands. And China wants to basically control it because it's a huge tourist hotspot. You remember the Man with the Golden Gun? The James
Yep.
Bond movie? That's the Gulf of Tonkin. That's those the Bay. It's also known as the Bay of Islands in Vietnam.
Oh dear.
Huge, lots of islands and lots of them with little caves and hideaway spots. And fishermen have been fishing those waters for centuries, more than multiple thousands of years. But yeah, a lot of people don't know this, but the Gulf of Tonkin incident wasn't actually directed at Vietnam. It was a spying operation on China that ran into a Vietnamese patrol boat. And instead of retreating, they opened fire like idiots. And instead of calming things down, the Kennedys ordered the bombing I think it was Cu Chi, and massive protests backed across South Vietnam, and that actually turned Vietnam again. That turned the Vietnamese against Americans. It's Kennedy's fault. You had the Vietnam in the bag until the Kennedys. Nah, man, them in their idiotic liberal establishment. They wanted to turn I forget his name. Morrison. He didn't want the Air Force to win. So he kept finding excuses to ground aircraft and send in the army. But the Americans, the American Army and Marines, for all your bragging, you look at the mess, oh man, it was a mess. They were lazy, hardly inflicted any casualties on and they took a lot of casualties. Didn't do basic things like take cover, or they would just keep firing at anything. And they basically failed to learn any of the Vietnamese tactics. But the generals were so incompetent, and they kept sidelining their allies. And then of course there was the huge arms scandals where they were supposed to send M16s, but instead they sent M14s, and the M16s were diverted to Germany. Wrong ammunition going missing. There were just so many scandals, and the Pentagon just swept everything under the rug, and billions of dollars went missing. But until Americans learn the truth and actually understand, you haven't won a war, ever. Well, you won a few, but you know what I mean, right? You didn't win World War II. You assisted, and you were a minor assist at that. Korea, that was a huge multinational effort to bring the Chinese to a halt. And I mean, it's like you look at Iraq and the arrogant mindset there as well. Oh, we won, did you?
Interesting.
And you look historically at it all, and it always comes back to the same thing. You have arrogant people who think, "Booyah, we're the best," and it's like, no, those people, even the people who fought in World War II, did a better job than you. They didn't sit around having barbecues, drinking beer, and saying "booyah" all the time. They sat in the trenches. They sat in the cold. They didn't run from the enemy, although there were a few times America did retreat in World War II, but most part, like Vietnam, all they wanted to do, they go out and patrol. And you look at you look at them, go out and patrol. They walk around for an hour and come back.
Yep, and they go and do that, and it's like, oh no, and they wonder how they get caught all the time.
And then they complain how terrible war is. Nah, it's not good. What? It's expected a fucking holiday camp? Complaining that you don't have enough steaks for your barbecue and enough beer? I'm fucking entitled.
Yep, and it's like, oh, well, what war crimes? I don't remember that. I'm just following orders. I'm just following orders. That's all I'm doing. You can't arrest me. I'm the fucking gunnery sergeant. You can't arrest me. I was only following orders.
Yeah. No, I think there was definitely, a whole bunch of things that went wrong, but the fact that people go, "Oh, Kennedy's dead," you can't say anything bad about him. That is disgusting, because if it wasn't for the Kennedys, if it wasn't for the illegal government of John F. Kennedy, you wouldn't have the Vietnam War. You wouldn't have all the problems America is having.
I agree.
Kennedy's turned out the mental institutions. They shut down funding to the states. They shut down a lot of government programs to fund NASA. But it wasn't the Kennedys who took us to the moon. The moon program had already been in. The NASA already started in '58. But everything was a secret. It was a secret Air Force program. He just took it to the public and said what they were doing. But if it wasn't for the massive overfunding of NASA, you might not have got to the moon in the 60s. Probably would have taken another 20 years of research, because I forget how many rockets, but it was like dozens of rockets, dozens of Apollo. There was a dozen Polos before, and Mercuries and all these other programs. But it's all arrogance, and unfortunately, sometimes when you have a victory, the arrogance just keeps increasing. But the people who come after, they say, "Oh, look, well," they just go around saying, "Well, NASA, oh, we landed on the moon, so you got to give us billions of dollars." And they say, "Well," and I think Nixon was the first president who ever asked the question, "Yes, but was it worth it?" I mean, NASA couldn't justify the moon program. And Nixon was right. The debt was increasing.
Yes, it was. It was increasing.
I mean,
and we're all Reagan. It was like, we have tripled our deficit. We have doubled our deficit ever since we began.
Yeah.
Reagan's speech, I mean, people should pay more attention to, because he spelled it out for them back in those days. It's like,
but it took but Reaganomics really didn't kick in until after Reagan, with Newt Gingrich and the cutting of government spending and fiscal controls that Reagan had never been able to implement, because he had a hostile Congress and Senate, even though half the time they were allegedly Republicans. But yeah, Reagan didn't know how to say no to the industrial military complex. That's why. And with the Cold War over, it was easy for Newt, particularly with Clinton, who really didn't want to do anything. So it was pretty okay, you know. Nixon had set up the economy, but he never saw the benefits of it. You know, everybody blames Nixon for the fiat currency. Or going off the gold standard, going off the gold standard, but you're running out of gold, right? The cost of mining gold is ridiculous. You mine gold and then put it in a vault, okay? And then they say, oh, but it's to back our debts. But it doesn't do anything about government spending, okay? It does not reduce government spending, okay? It doesn't matter how much gold you have if you don't stop spending. The whole idea of the fiat currency was to make overspending impossible, because the more you spend, the more it would cost in debt. So in the long term, you would lose.
What's the borrowing against it, right?
Yeah.
And then they
But
monetize
the gold
the
standard
debt.
is borrowing against debt. Yeah. It's just using gold as a means to create money.
Yeah.
Still creating debt.
Yeah. Well, it's if you
still going to buy the gold.
Right. You get the gold, buy it or mine it or whatever. You base your currency off of it. And then if you devalue your currency because you don't have enough in circulation, you don't incur the debt that we get when we devalue through borrowing, right?
Yes.
And that's the biggest problem with the fiat currency stuff. And that
yeah.
starts a spiral that eventually you just get sucked down into a whirlwind. Whereas if you have a real, what's constitutional money, it's just now your dollar's worth 50 cents, but there's twice as much in circulation. And that's it.
But Nixon was convinced that increasing the reserves with other physical assets was only going to delay the inevitable problem that the cost of currency was increasing. Okay? And he was convinced by several major economists, including Friedman, to basically the floating dollar and expansion of the currency would bring in lots of revenue.
Sorry, man. I did mute myself right when I coughed.
Yeah.
So no, sorry for this. Has been a crazy evening, man. So I'm sure I missed most of the show so far. So now I cleaned up the mess from I don't know if you saw my messages, but I cleaned up the mess from the dogs.
I saw your messages.
Yeah.
The dogs.
And that wasn't too bad, but the stuff I have to spray in the carpet now, that's what it smells like up here. It's just like
no.
Oh yeah, ammonia.
Yeah, I don't know what's in it. The nature's miracle. Why am I fuzzy? Come on, keep up with me. I know it's not that great of them. So anyway, I was just taking a look at what's connected to my network, and I'm trying to figure out I don't know what the heck this icon is. There's a Dexatech.
Oh, court has ordered the Biden administration to stop the fire sale of border wall material after Texas lawsuit.
Nice. Yeah, that ought to be against the law.
Well, they're not sure. Well, saying it's an ethical violation.
It's a government asset. Don't they normally have to go through a procurement process before they can just get rid of stuff?
Well, if something's I don't know, because there are provisions for asset disposal, right? Say if a project shuts down, but it's not a shutdown project. It's not a failed project. It's not,
Mhm.
What do you think of the news that Russia's saying they have a cancer, vaccine, cancer vaccine?
Well, they've had a cure for cancer for a long time. It's garbage. I wouldn't take another vaccine at gunpoint.
Yeah.
Just another way to kill you, to make you think you're being cured. That's what I think of it. COVID has taught me to question all vaccines from the start.
Yeah, I heard something from a vaccine doctor, and it makes sense. In the initial early days, when our immune systems were compromised, right, vaccines saved lives because we had no answer for certain viruses like smallpox and polio. But the technology used then, particularly like smallpox, they used cowpox, right? With polio, they used a radiated version of polio, right?
Mm-hmm.
To stimulate the immune system. But the problem is that they started finding more and more excuses to create more and more vaccines because they got addicted to government money because the vaccines are paid for by government in large multi-million-dollar batches, but they're also funded by the government, so they get double the money. That's why you look at Big Pharma and they have, what's our profit today? $5 billion,
Right.
And they're just addicted to it. But the problem is our bodies only have so many antibodies at any one time.
Right.
That's why so what our body does is say, well, we don't need to be immune to this because we will survive. We don't need to be immune to smallpox because we'll survive. You know what I mean? Because you know what I mean?
Right.
Well, not smallpox, but cowpox, right? We don't need to be immune to cowpox because we can survive cowpox. We don't need to be immune to chickenpox because we can survive chickenpox. So yes, we don't need we don't need a smallpox vaccine anymore because nobody gets smallpox.
Yeah. Well, I know, and there's only one other country. Almost. Oh, now my wife has misplaced the dog. Anyway, what I was going to say is there's only one other country that stabs kids more than the U.S., and it's South Korea, and they're sicker than we are. So, yeah, we're overwhelming immune systems.
South Korea's cut its vaccines, and their life expectancy has increased.
Yeah. But by the time the polio vaccine came out, the improvements in fresh water and sanitation had almost eradicated it.
Yeah.
So
by the time the polio vaccine was the biggest scam perpetrated, and that billions of dollars were spent immunizing people against polio, despite the fact there was only a small number of people who got it, and they already had a cure.
Well, all right.
And it turned out to be good health.
Yeah. Good health, good food. You guys keep talking.
But
I've got another disaster to deal with. All right, keep going. I'll be back.
Undercooked food. They also found that by increasing the, they didn't fertilize fruit trees. They found by fertilizing fruit trees and improving the quality of fruit and vegetables, they halved the amount of disease in society. Now you have the green activists who want to get rid of these chemical fertilizers. Yeah, get rid of green. Which you prefer, getting rid of the fertilizer or the green activist?
The green activist.
Yeah. One of the reasons why we live longer is good food, and one of the reasons why we have good food is these chemical. And it's not the chemical. And the thing is, the fertilizers aren't the chemicals in the food that's killing us. It's the processing. It's the processing plants. It's not just over salting of everything. It's the chemicals they use to line the tins. and one of the problems is the monopolization on food. Big food. It's a monopolization on food processing. You break up the big monopolies. You deregulate, allow more companies. You allow farmers to form their own co-ops again. And you'll see not just the price of food come down, but, the problem is governments are chasing the donation. You've got to get rid of the political donation.
Yep.
Whoever said that free speech whoever said that giving money to politicians is free speech was a corrupt judge. Money is not speech. Though this election did prove that having $1 billion, although Hillary had $1 billion and lost too, but this time Kamala had $1 billion and lost.
Yep. And it's like,
and where's those 20 million votes from 2020? Where have they gone? Back to Venezuela?
Well, okay, time to get going. Oh, we're here to support. Come on, no, turn around. We don't need you guys. You already did your job in 2020. We don't need you. But you gave us money.
Said that it was
you gave us money.
Yeah. No, I reckon a lot of people woke up after 2020 and realized that, despite everything the establishment was saying, that, a lot of people didn't vote for Biden. That people just filled in ballots.
I think those trucks that we saw in Pennsylvania, I think somebody was like, nope, not here, here. And they pulled out the the drivers of those trucks and gave them the good old 1-2.
Yeah, I think a few teamsters in Pennsylvania and a couple at Detroit that got together and told the delivery drivers to take the day off. Because you remember Florida, right? Florida, Pennsylvania, Nevada, California. Democrats, time and time again, people keep saying, dead vote, dead, nobody's voted Democrat other than the dead. But until enough people actually stood up, which they finally did in 2024, again, one of the reasons why, people lost faith in the system is because, all the hurdles the government puts in your way every time, and the courts refusing to hear cases.
Yep.
And that's again because the right in the 60s ceded the academics to the left. Mexico is worried that Trump may order a military strike on cartels. Oh, too bad, so sad. Use a nuke! House GOP are complaining that the Speaker's not communicating with them. Yeah, what's happened with Mike Johnson? Why is he in hiding? It's because Trump has no confidence in him.
Yeah, they're running scared.
Ooh, Democrat Super PAC is under investigation for funneling $700K to companies associated with leadership of the DNC, including Kamala Harris's own husband, getting $100 million worth of contracts. And this is why I said you got to take the money out of politics, because they don't. These aren't these huge funds. People don't understand. Why do they keep trying to raise $1 billion for a job that's what, 500K a year, 700K a year? Then why do they need $1 billion for a 4 to 8 year job? It's because they funnel the money to all their big donors. The big donors they fundraise. They get a cut of the fundraising, right? They buy off all the activist groups who go around filling in ballots. And, of course, they buy celebrities. But, of course, then the husbands and wives and sons and daughters of these candidates get huge election contracts. Now, Future Forward, which is Kamala's PAC, ended up being almost 50 million in debt, according to Open Secrets, 50 million. The initial amount was 20, but Hank Hancock and others they took hundreds of millions of dollars, but they're 50 million in debt. Kamala has to pay that. She's looking for bailouts. Let's start with your own husband taking 700K paycheck, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, he's cheap, isn't he? 700K to be Kamala's husband.
Good.
That better
God.
be a year. That better be a year, right? 700K. Man, he's cheap, isn't he? Oh, South Korea just took a step towards impeaching. Took a step forward. The South Korean parliament has voted to impeach the former South Korean president. They won't accept his offer to step down. No, they want him impeached. Actually, during the whole martial law debacle, one of the top generals was playing phone games and didn't realize he was being broadcast. He didn't actually think it was actually a serious matter. He thought it was some kind of drill initially, until somebody told him they were serious. Apparently, most of the generals didn't go along with it anyway, leaving the police confused with eventually orders being issued through opposition and others to go home. Oh, Bill Gates has sought a meeting with President Trump at Mar-a-Lago last night.
Oh no! I would tell him to leave. Like, get out of here.
Trump did meet with Zuckerberg after Meta. Hey, it turns out Meta donated $1 million to Trump's camp inaugural fund. Other companies as well, including Amazon and Uber. But Bill Gates has asked to come to the Mar-a-Lago New Year's Eve event. Trump has provided no further details. And further questions whether they're going or not has not been answered. So it looks like Gates got turned down.
That's what he gets.
Well, he gave to Kamala, so whereas at least the others they gave to both sides. Well, catching their bets, it's just tax avoidance to them, which I don't understand. Why do they give money to politics to avoid paying taxes when you're still out $1 million, right? more people saying that Canada joining the US is not a crazy idea. Canada has a low population, highly dependent on migrants. Their economy is highly dependent on the US. The cost of their government. So, you subsidize Canada? If you stop paying Canada tariffs, they would collapse economically.
Oh dear.
Canada has tariffs on US goods. Oh, speaking of tariffs, did the left not say the tariffs were a tax on goods and that it would lead to a price increase in inflation, right? Did they not say that? Because guess what Governor Hersheybar wants to do? She wants to put a 30% tax on fuel in New York to cover the climate crisis. Wait a minute. Won't that cause an increase? Won't that cause an increase in prices and inflation? Trump tariff bad. Greenhouse gas tax good. It's a fucking moron mentality. Still, a lot of people are actually saying economically it makes perfect sense to take over Canada, because without your 25% without the 25% tariffs that Canada charges on US goods, they'd be bankrupt. Plus, you subsidize Canada through NATO, so Oh wow! Mexican security forces have detained 475,000 migrants in the last since the election. But they're holding them and threatening to release them if Trump introduces tariffs on Mexico. That sounds about right.
That does sound about right.
Oh, Syrian leader's wife is dying of leukemia. Recently deposed Syrian dictator Assad, his wife, Osama, is dying of leukemia. She's currently in a Moscow hospital for treatment. Apparently, she holds a British passport.
Oh dear.
Yeah, apparently she also was already receiving flight. Yeah. Apparently, the British are making moves to withdraw her passport. German government's collapsed. They're called for. They're going to hold elections in February. No. They're looking at France now and expecting a no confidence vote there as well. But Olaf Scholz has been ousted in a no confidence vote. He's barely holding on to power now by calling an election.
The world's gone crazy, David. The world's gone crazy.
Well, the problem is that they're spending more money than they make. And they seem to keep thinking that we'll just keep taxing it more, you know. It's just economics, you know. They don't understand. But you can't just keep printing money.
Nope, you can't keep printing money because eventually soon you'll run out of it.
Just China's on the verge of collapse. They're going through deflation right now. The yuan just got devalued to 55 cents. Which makes it harder for China to buy more. Because believe it or not, China, though part of BRICS, they're still trading in US dollars. Currently, only Brazil and Russia have cut US dollar trade. Saudi Arabia has cut it in half and is mostly dealing in euros.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I got back in time just in time for a long pause. This is. I'm ready to go to bed.
Ready to go to bed?
No, it's just been one of those days, man. I mean,
Yeah.
I had a hard night sleeping last night. Got up about 4 times to pee and kept and apparently I was wrestling my covers and throwing. I don't know. I found stuff like I don't even know what happened. And so anyway, just one of those days. Broke the build at like 6 o'clock and had to undo some stuff, and it took forever for it to do a second build. And I mean, I logged out at like 7 something tonight. So, someone's lying to me at work. Build server supposedly has access to something. So I go and put the stuff I need there so that it can access it. It still can't find it.
Democrats going to be pissed.
Yeah. And it took me quite a while to figure out how to get it in there. What the hell is that?
President Biden vetoed a bill that would have had 66 federal district judges over the span of the next decade.
That would have banned? Is that what you said?
Added.
Oh.
Biden killed a bill that would have added 66 more federal judges.
Gotcha.
He apparently he vetoed it because the House hadn't answered the question whether or not. Well, let's see what happens, right? When the president creates a bill, it's got to go to the Senate, right?
Well, it goes to Congress. Well, the president doesn't create a bill. He can ask, but it has to start in the House of Representatives usually.
Yeah, but apparently this is a private bill, which apparently legal in the US, that private organizations could advance the bill to the president for consideration, in which he will then present to Congress. Right? I got it right.
Sort of.
But apparently he's vetoed it because the Speaker of the House had not returned his calls.
Well, hey, he doesn't need a valid reason to veto.
Yeah.
Are we sure Biden was even cognizant that he vetoed, or he was just told, "Go like this, Joe"?
Yeah, but how do you veto how do you veto a bill that you yourself started?
Yeah,
But
because
he
if it
justified
would have
it by
helped
saying-
Trump in any way, shape, or form, they're going to veto it.
That's right, because by the time the bill kicked in, they wouldn't have time to appoint any judges. So basically, they just realized they had 66 judges to Trump. That's probably why Congress held up the bill in the first place, so that because it can still go, it's still a mess, right? People don't understand how the system works, how much power the president really doesn't have, that it's mostly bluster.
Well, in some ways, the president has way too much power that was ceded to him by Congress illegally a long time ago.
Such as the War Powers Act.
Yep, none of that's legal.
Thank you, Bush.
Well, some of that stuff goes back even further.
Dad. Thank you, Daddy Bush.
No, I think it actually goes further than that. But the current iteration of the War Powers Act is Daddy Bush, yes.
Yeah.
But you already had illegal wars under Kennedy. So.
Well, and it's like you read some of those early 20th century bill, especially when we get to Roosevelt, right? They're going to create some executive branch, something other, and it will have the power to regulate and to, well, they call it regulations instead of legislation, right? That they have the power to, and it's like, no, the Congress is the only one that's supposed to be able to write laws, period. And if you're going to change that, it requires an amendment, not just some act that says, oh, yeah, we're going to make these vague laws and we'll let the executive branch figure out what powers they need in order to enact them. No, that's not what it's for. Why does that say I got a wireless thing? Is that what that says? How many times do I have to turn
Single
that?
strength?
Now it's gone away.
Strength indicator, yeah.
Yeah, but I turned off my Wi-Fi. Somewhere I've got the antennas. I haven't even connected it. I probably won't. Up here, I don't need it. But anyway, that's weird. But I think it's also why stuff keeps going slowly. But and I'm running this in Bing, as like was said before. Firefox I even restarted Firefox. It wouldn't launch into StreamYard again, and so I had to re-authenticate. I tried a different browser. I had to re-authenticate, which is two-step authentication, two-factor authentication. Oh my goodness! So anyway, and now my allergies are going crazy. So have you been saying much anime?
I just been listening to David and just.
Well, we've been going for an hour. Well, you guys have been going for an hour and 18 minutes. I've been kind of.
I've just been randomly going through the news because
Well, this is the war room now, right? We can talk about more than not current affairs. It was like the pop culture.
No, we haven't actually covered much pop culture today.
Well, it's so depressing. It's like we have another, Epstein type character who's been that they've decided to either sacrifice or remove. Right. It's the only reason why Epstein stuff ever came to light was because somebody decided, a little internal struggle. Maybe they didn't like the way he said something. They're afraid they're going to turn him in. So it's time to remove him.
No, I think the reason why Epstein was removed is because one of the lawsuits against him became public.
Mm-hmm.
If that lawsuit if they got a gag order in place like they did with every other, if the Virginia Guthrie case had a gag order like all the other cases, it would have never come to light. But a federal judge did get offended that a pedophile had a gag order against them when you had the same activists who were seeking a gag order on the Epstein case wanting to throw open this other case at the same time to public scrutiny because public interest. And she said you can't have it both ways. You either have both cases private or both public, or both cases public. And they couldn't make up their mind, so she made up their mind for them. A Florida judge threw it open to the public interest.
Yeah.
And from there, more cases started steamrolling in.
Right. Which it should have been the whole time. It should never been private.
Epstein wasn't the only person caught and charged, but he was the high-profile figure. The other figure was a photographer who ended up being deported back to Brussels, where he died in jail awaiting trial.
Yeah.
I.e., the inmates beat him to death.
Yeah.
They didn't want to wait for the trial. They pretty much...
Yeah.
The authorities probably didn't realize that he was probably know what he was charged with. All they knew was that they had a inmate awaiting trial. He was put in general population awaiting transfer to a prison, and shouldn't have left him alone.
Yeah. Yeah, they have a way of taking care of.
Yeah, two people were. A lot of people don't realize that Epstein wasn't the only one arrested. He was just the only high-profile figure arrested.
Yeah.
All the others pleaded guilty, except for Burrell, who was a foreign citizen, and he was for some reason extradited because he already had charges against him in France and Brussels.
Right.
So, because his involvement with Epstein was pretty much just a photographer, they considered his involvement not worth keeping him here when there were higher charges in Europe, right?
Yeah.
So wanting to keep the Europeans on side, they extradited him, which is rare. Because,
and there was there was another laptop full of stuff. I don't think it's
that was that was the Wexner case. Wexner pleaded guilty and didn't go to jail. He paid huge fines.
Because there was something I thought that's not Anthony Weiner. It was somebody else with the last name of Weiner. I mean, I remember people saying. Yeah, I mean, there was stuff on the laptop that you had apparently New York cops that had 20, 30 years on and they were disgusted by what was on that, and nothing became of that either.
Because 4 of the 6 allegedly committed suicide, and the other 2 said the FBI took the laptop away. That was the Weiner laptop, and Weiner got charged and as a sex offender and fined $700,000 for inappropriate.
So it was Anthony Weiner, right?
Was Anthony Weiner? He was charged with an inappropriate relationship with a 15-year-old. Because the 4 cops couldn't testify because they killed themselves, and the other 2 refused to testify because they said they only saw the text messages, not the photographs, so they can't testify to the photographs. So he got off on basically sexting a 15-year-old for sex,
right?
Even though there was a lot more to it,
right? Much lesser charge he got in trouble for.
Yes.
Yeah, they do circle the wagons. I mean, they do. They do protect the inner circle.
Associates. Yeah, they protect the inner circle. Wexner only got fined. Who was the other one? Big name. But in the finance world, he was a big financier. He also got fined. But yeah, that's what they could do. I mean, you look at half the Florida drug cases. Drug dealers, they plead guilty and pay millions in fines, and then they're back in business.
But you or I, we're missing $100 on our taxes, and we might as well.
But it's
as George Carlin said, it's a big club, and you ain't in it.
Yep. Yeah, but Carlin was a raging liberal who was very selective in his outrage.
Oh yeah, especially late in his life. Some of the stuff is like, I'm like, dude, you're propping up the establishment that you were pissing on for 30 years. What the heck?
You're not a libertarian anymore, Carlin. You're a liberal. Okay, just admit it. Just admit it. You're not a libertarian anymore. You got into that New York crowd and you kissed their ass, kissed the ring.
I got something else popping up. That's the other thing too, is my machine's downloading updates and drivers, and it's like now there's some
But the
Norton
real
thing installing.
scumbag we want to see taken down is Klaus Schwab and
Yeah.
Larry Fink. Those two are responsible for the Ukraine war. They should go down for war profiteering.
They're responsible for that for tens of millions of people worldwide.
Yeah, wars worldwide. Larry Fink. Yeah.
Well,
Larry,
yeah, if you go that wide, yeah, I'm just talking about just for the COVID stuff. But yeah,
vaccines, COVID, scams.
You can
Speaking of COVID scams, Little Wayne and about a dozen other celebrities have been named in a investigation into the COVID payment scheme, in which tens of millions of taxpayer dollars were diverted to party events for celebrities.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. Look at the person that was running what was the name of that BLM and bought how many houses? It's just like
she got fined. What? She didn't even get fined the value of the money she stole. She got fined only thousands of dollars for incorrect paperwork.
Yeah. As far as I know, she still has the houses. Yeah, it's amazing.
She has two of the houses. She had to sell one to pay the property taxes.
Okay. Anyway.
Apparently some people at BLM tried to sue her, and she had them thrown out. And they said, was showing you that BLM is not a structured organization with elections, but a dictatorship.
Well, she's following orders, right?
Yeah,
she was told, here's what you got to do. If you play, here's what you get to keep. Here's what we want you to do. Yeah, and it's just like
into Blue, and you get your percentage.
Right. Well, and then you were mentioning what's her name in Georgia that was faced the first time I had to go deal with something.
Yeah,
they all know what they've been told, right? Here's how it's going to happen. If you
prosecute Trump and you get $1 billion.
Right. You hold to the party line and you're going to be protected. But they also know the penalty of failure, right? If it's a mob, right? So if they think you're going to be disloyal or you might be persuaded to be, something happens to you. I mean, this is not too dissimilar to what happened to Rommel, with the, in 44 when they tried to overthrow, or was it 43, 44, right? 44
Actually,
when they tried.
Rommel did not. Rommel was loyal. The British intelligence, however, convinced the Germans that he was disloyal.
Well,
with a whole bunch of fake telegrams.
Well, and in what's the colonel who started the whole thing,
he was
right. Well, it was mentioned somewhere in one of the communiques that they had that they didn't have to worry about Rommel because he would be loyal to the German government. Whatever the German government was, he'd be loyal to.
That was a British agent, though. That turned out to be a British agent. Yeah.
Okay.
They wanted Rommel out of the way because they couldn't beat him in the desert. They tried to kill him twice. The third time they succeeded.
By that time, he was in Normandy. They were already out of North Africa.
Yeah, but if Rommel had his way and wasn't bogged down defending himself against charges,
right?
He would have brought up he was the only general who was preparing for a Normandy landing. The others were thinking Normandy's a distraction. It's going to be Calais.
Right.
And he said, no, it won't be Calais. It's too well defended. We should be putting our guns into.
No, he was back in Stuttgart at the time of. I mean, you talk about fortuitous because it was 2 divisions that he had in reserve that hadn't been brought up. They were supposed to be, but they weren't. And so when the Normandy landings happened, they were a couple hundred miles out of position. And they were
cut off because the French had destroyed all the railway. And by the time the Germans had repaired the railway, the Americans were 10 weeks into their invasion. They'd taken large parts of the coast, and the Russians had advanced over 100 miles. That was it. You know.
No.
Now, again, I studied this. I know it sounds strange, but see, America was making tanks every 23 days. Sorry, a Patton tank was only taking 23 days. A Grant later was taking like 28 days. But a Tiger was taking nearly 400 days. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah.
The amount of manpower
yeah.
to make one German tank was ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, no, the Shermans, the only thing that they had really was maneuverability and numbers. I mean, a Tiger shell would go through 4 of them if they were lined up.
Yeah.
But while they were dealing with something in the front, the rest of them could get in around behind and take care of the Tiger.
Yeah. That's Americans. They called themselves GIs, government issue, because they basically said there's no surviving. You get shot, you're dead. There's no medical treatment. You're in a tank, you get hit, you're dead. You know, there's no armor. You know.
Well, I mean, they had armor, but not to the level that they needed. And I think even couldn't the 88s, even the 88s, couldn't those go through?
Yeah. Even the heavy Grant. None of the American tanks could stand up to the 88.
Yeah. Well, see, now there's something that's the exact opposite.
And here's a secret that most people don't tell you.
Tanks.
In the last 6 months of the war, the French factories that were making German guns were making 88s for the Americans, and they were using the 88s mounted on half tracks against the German armor. That's how they won on the Western Front. And on the Russian front, again, it was just numbers. 10,000 T-34s against the German 3,000 tanks.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, and seeing that's what I'm saying. The 88, unlike the crazy, Tiger tanks that took a year and a half to make, that was a versatile gun. That was probably one of the most versatile things that they had. Right? They could use anti-aircraft. They could do anti-personnel. They could just bombard. They could anti-tank with it.
Now, the Germans if you study the German plans, you go, shit, why did they lose? Well, then you find out how many of their plans they implemented. Most of their factories never built or lied about production.
Yeah.
I think Hitler had no idea what was really going on. I think, he'd go to the Volkswagen plant and have a look around and see all these tanks being made, and he thought, and get told, yes, we've got thousands of these factories by Führer. Right. I think that's a sheer delusion. I don't think anybody had the sense or the brains to tell the truth. Yeah. And I don't think Hitler was that stupid. I think he was actually genuinely just a puppet. I think he had no idea what was going on, and his advisors and generals were just constantly feeding him bullshit.
Yeah, possibly.
But again, it comes down to if all these things were against Germany, why they go to war? Well, originally they went to war because if America hadn't supplied Russia with tanks, Russia would have been defeated.
Yeah. Well, no, they had the Lend-Lease programs and other things. And that was back when we were supposed to be neutral.
Yeah.
We were supplying Russians and the British.
Yeah.
So, but
and then again, you ask, wait a minute, when did all these factories come from? Because America had almost no arms industry. Again, in 1924, you went from having no arms industry to a massive arms industry supplying the war in China.
Yeah.
A war you started and then turned against because I forget who it was. Some Chinese American made an appeal to Roosevelt and won him over. Money, of course, Chinese gold.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was in the 30s, I think, and then you had the American, the ABG.
Yeah,
I forget, that was the Flying Tigers too. So that was before we entered the war. It was mid 30s.
Yeah. So. Flying Tigers. My great uncle was a American lieutenant colonel at the time. He was flying one of those. They were flying. He flew the Tigers out of Australia through the unoccupied parts of Indonesia, up India, and over into Tibet.
Yeah, we were fighting against the Japanese, I think, too.
Yeah. who were
Anyway.
supposed to be our allies.
Yeah, well,
We started World War II. We attacked our allies in Japan, Japan, in a war we started with Japan and dragged Japan into our war in China in the first place, along with Russia.
yeah. Well, that's what diplomats and that's what bureaucrats do, right?
They create wars they create wars.
Soldiers fight in wars that bureaucrats start.
And the center of the Japanese-Chinese war was Jacob Schiff, a merchant banker who wanted to get revenge for the Schiff Merchant Company being seized during the Soviets.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it's just a long, complicated series of bullshit. But to get his fortune back, he got into the arms business to get his foot, and was shipping arms for Roosevelt's.
Yeah.
Roosevelt's private trust, of course, there's no official records. They're not, because it's a private company. And after a certain amount of time, those records get destroyed anyway. But nobody knows. The Roosevelts, they've got allegedly $1 trillion in a private trust, one of 9 private trusts in the world that are over $1 trillion. And allegedly, they have gold dating back to the Dutch East Indies slave trade.
Oh yeah, that doesn't surprise me. So anyway.
And they're involved in the Opium Wars. Now, what happened to the Schiffs is quite different. In the 50s and 60s, they went through a series of bankruptcies because after the war, as you know, the arms industry took a huge nosedive.
All right, guys.
Yeah. Don't forget, America had all those. They had all those factories in Europe. America's arms exports almost came ground to a halt until wasn't until the 70s. You almost had no industrial military complex.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the 70s pretty much killed most industry in the U.S. Various reasons. Carter was part of it, but he was really picking up the pieces that had started well before him.
Every president, including Reagan, has contributed to the decline in the U.S. either through incompetence or failure to stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
And that's usually because they can't. It's either because Congress gets in the way or the president's convinced by special interest groups that that America's investments are paying off. It will pay off in global trade in US dollars. Then we'll become a smarter economy. That all these people are tied up. All this capital tied up in industry is holding back technology. There's always an excuse, right, to destroy manufacturing.
Yeah.
I don't know why they're obsessed with getting rid of manufacturing in the West.
And they have been for a long time.
Yeah. Then again, you look at the mental attitude of the liberal establishment and they see the working man as a disease that needs to be contained. So I think it's the fact that the working class became the middle class through manufacturing. So by destroying manufacturing, they're protecting their land ownership, because that's what the liberal establishment's all about, is land ownership.
Yeah.
But most of them are lawyers. That's why
yeah. Surprise, surprise. So.
I don't exactly agree with Shakespeare on kill all lawyers, but he was onto something, You need a trim. Lawyers, we have far too few doctors and far too many lawyers.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But unfortunately, the American Constitution, under the guise of allowing for compensation, has allowed the explosion of lawsuits. Though America has started to come up with laws on frivolous lawsuits, and they're actually starting to work now. I mean, particularly in
No,
Texas.
frivolous lawsuits. I mean, that was a big thing even when Clinton was president.
Yeah,
And in
because
part,
the government,
they wanted to be careful with it because of how many of their constituents were winning frivolous lawsuits, and that was their source of income.
yeah, a lot of them. Yeah, a lot of. I'm not saying it was solely Democrats, but a lot of Republican lawyers too were big law firms. You know, all through the
Mhm.
'90s were Republican, not Democrat. But you know, Clinton, whatever reason, managed to convince a lot of them to switch sides.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
guess it may be because Newt Gingrich and others were realizing the economic writing of the wall, that if you just keep allowing all these lawsuits, the insurance industry would collapse or, you know, skyrocketing premiums.
Yeah.
But of
Which is
course,
what's happening.
lawyers don't care about the economy. They care about looting the economy.
Yeah. Well,
So,
that's the magic carrot that they dangle in front of people's noses, and then
Yeah.
I don't know where I fall and how much of it's on purpose and how much of it's just incompetence. Where when it falters, magically
I think a lot of it is
government's there
incompetence.
to pick up the
Yeah.
pieces. Now they've got a new to your point about land ownership and slaves.
Yeah.
Essentially, they now have a new dependency class that they slowly keep adding to.
Yes.
But they're bankrupting the country at the same time. So at some point, there's going to be a revolt, and they're going to be swinging
against
again.
the wall.
Yeah. They'll,
You look at the anger, particularly on the left, and the anger on the left is at landowners, particularly big rentals. And guess who's one of the biggest renters in DC? AOC, 10 million in property trust under a mother's name. It's what Democrats do. They always create these trusts so that they don't have their name on them. No, I get it. You know, you have a limited supply of land, but eventually home ownership will disappear. But you've got to replace it with something more sustainable, right?
Yep.
Eventually, we will reach the point where we have to have population management. China is already looking at this population management. And yes, it may mean forced breeding, but this is a reality that many countries are now facing, is that the women are refusing to have kids for point blank. And without kids, there's no future. And you can't keep saying, oh, but we can use migration, because you're genociding a population just for the selfish few who just refuse to give up their job. We have far too many people in the workplace. This is an actual study that says we have far too many people in the workplace, right? You can halve the number of people in the workplace and it won't dent productivity, because it's particularly with women in the office, right? It's just bloated bureaucracy.
Yeah, I think it depends on the industry. Certain industries
saying, a general look at industry is that there's too few in the productivity side and too much management.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Now, and that's something I've been dealing with in computers, programming for a long, long time. It used to be,
and the government forces these companies to have high numbers of managers.
Yeah, I remember when it was. I mean, even in the 90s, it wasn't odd to be on a team with 4 or 5, 6 developers, and you might talk to 1 or 2 business people. Now it's same 4 or 5 developers.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how many meetings I'm in, more than half, and I'm talking 60 to 80% of the people in that meeting.
Now, I agree. I agree with weekly meetings in the office. Other than that, if you're a developer or you just should be meeting your productivity quotas. It shouldn't have to come into the office to sit in a cubicle. Whoops. He's crashed.
Oh no, he crashed. Now how are we gonna end the stream? Oh no.
No, he'll be back to end the stream. But you know what I mean, right? There are many jobs you don't need to be in an office for. Right? Company reps, they don't need an office. Company lawyers should just be a law firm. Companies don't need lawyers on hand, right? Now,
I don't want to be woken up at 3 in the goddamn morning because a lady tripped over something at the store.
Biggest contribution to inflation in the 70s under Carter was women in the workforce. As the number of women in the workforce soared, the housing prices soared because they're all bidding on auctions on buying houses near schools. Now, yes, there was a population boom in the 70s, but the second and third waves of double incomers, well, they basically figured out, well, if I don't have kids, I have more money. I can take more holidays. Or I can just freeze my eggs, all these other things. Never accounting for the future, never realizing that, things could go wrong or their job may not last. But we have to figure out a way to make our economies more stable and more sustainable. And we can't do that if when you lose your job, you lose your house. Or if you lose your job, you lose your wife, Marital breakup needs to be very difficult. Losing your house should be very difficult. Once you own your house, that's it. You shouldn't be paying property taxes, right? The government is putting its fingers into too many pies in taxes. And in order to justify these big bureaucracies to stay in power, and it happens with both parties, they create these bureaucracies that depend on them, right? School teachers, road workers. You have people on full-time jobs who don't work full-time, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I think you could clearly see as class sizes decline in size, the indoctrination on the left rose, obviously, because the teachers can now focus on individuals and keep the classes in line with fear. But when you have 50 students, people did better. But they say, but not all people. Well, nobody's equal, man. Right? That's why we have tests to weed out the idiots so they don't become doctors. And Elon Musk says, we're not even training hard. We got thousands of engineering jobs that go every year unanswered. We don't need and the problem is they train foreigners to take the jobs because they won't because of quotas. Yeah. Historically, we did better historically with single income households. We need when people didn't fear losing their house just because they lost their job. The economy needs to be stabilized, and the only way to stabilize that is a healthy dose of authoritarianism on the positive side and on the negative side of censorship and all that. You actually have a authority to actually say, no, you can't do that, right? A legal authority that basically the citizens can challenge their government at every step of the way. But there should be an exact set of rules that are pretty much a constitution that is set in stone, and keep the government out of the free market, keep the rein in the insurance companies, rein in investments, and insurance, make sure that insurance companies can't put all their eggs in one basket, that if there's any favoritism, but our biggest problem is that we're running out of things to invest in, right? We got money piling up in banks because we got nothing to invest in because there's fewer companies. That's the problem with monopolies, is that they soak up all the wealth, right? And they pay themselves more and more exorbitant wages, but they produce less and less returns over time to investors. So the money dries up. And these monopolies, they just turn to government contracts to survive. We need to cut government. We need to cut government spending. We need to cut government contracts. We need to bring in open transparency. You can't have companies like Amazon making 100% profit off contracts. That's absolute corruption.
Yep.
And the worst one is the fact that we have agencies like USAID, which have budgets bigger than the CIA. What the fuck? An organization's budget, not the money they give out, just for the organization worldwide in payroll, is bigger than the CIA's payroll. And many say it's an extension of the CIA. It's going to come to a head sooner or later that, and the problem isn't capitalism; it's the cronyism, right? You want to start a business? Look at the bureaucracy you have to go through, and yeah, it's difficult in the fact that yes, a lot of businesses are going to fail, and they're going to fail not because there isn't the market there; it's because either they can't sell enough goods to justify the high rents, or the market seasonal, where people, or if anything, and again, competition. If there's too many businesses in one area, there's too much competition, it collapses. But when there's too few competition, the monopolies control 90% of the market, and again, you have this wilderness of wealth where you have the gap growing, where you have a very narrow few number of people making lots of money, and outside of that, you have everybody just living paycheck to paycheck. And again, it's an adversarial system that thrives on the liberal mentality of constant competition, but however, they think themselves above the competition because they rig the outcome through government. Eventually, this system, people will come to realize that it's not capitalism. And they say, oh, but Dave, in a free market, if a big business becomes, yeah, but it's a free market. That means that government does not support business. So if a company grows big, it's grown big on its own. But once the market has reaches saturation, it will have to shrink. It can't turn around to the government and say, or it can't turn around to the bank and says, give me money to exist, or turn around to the government and says, keep bailing me out. You know what I mean? If Ford makes 100,000 cars a year and they can't sell them, what happens? Well, the government buys them. That's a bailout. Whether you say you get a government bailout or not, it's still a bailout.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
But does the government still buy? How many cars? I mean, I forget how many, but the government buys so many cars a year and then sells them within a year. It's ridiculous.
There were 87 people watching when it crashed. Now it just shows one.
Oh, no.
Well, I think we might as well call it here because we can all agree that what we have now is not capitalism; it's cronyism.
Yep.
Yeah. It's to your point. It's destroy the middle classism, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that's
all
the
right.
point of it, right? It's to destroy the middle class.
Return to serfdom.
Yeah, return to serfdom. And that's the liberal mentality every time. You look at every liberal government.
Yep.
And eventually, every liberal democracy has ended in dictatorship.
For a reason.
Yeah,
and so before I can't end the show, I mean, it took me, I even tried Firefox again. I had to restart Edge 3 times to get back in. I don't know what's going on. Hopefully. I don't know. We'll see. I definitely have to get another graphics card in order to get my other machine fired up again too. So anyway. All right. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Hopefully things are going okay with Seth, and he'll be back next week. Hope everyone has a good New Year.
He's sending baby back for coffee and gaming. So
yep. And coffee and gaming. Look for it in the morning. If he can be there, he'll be there. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. You guys got any other parting words? Congrats to Anime on 500 subs.
Yeah. Congrats, Anime. I don't have a date yet on my Kickstarter. It hasn't been rejected. It just hasn't been accepted.
Yeah.
Well, we can only hope for good news. We can only hope for good.
But apparently somebody told me Kickstarter only accepts so many per month, and I may just
Have to wait.
Just
till you bubble up to the top of the list. Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
All
See
right.
everyone and have a good weekend.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Good day, sir.
Later, dudes.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Hell, I got to go.
Peace out.
Burn in hell, New World Order. Fuck you. You, New World Order. Fuck you, Bill Gates.
I love you.
You gotta do better than that.
I love you.